Kicking off here, the Wednesday show. JD here. Good to have you on board. We appreciate when you take some of your time to join us on the program where intellectual anarchy is encouraged and nurtured for now. Marcelo working at Doyle, Brad producing the program. Emails at the website, jerrydoyle.com. Poll question up there for you today. Oh, by the way, we are monitoring the live events on the House of Representatives in their 33rd attempt to repeal the 2010 health care law, better known as Obamacare. We will be following this minute by minute, almost in a golfer's tone, because we don't want to disturb their concentration on their 33rd attempt to repeal Obamacare. Very, very important. He's got it lined up. Here comes the vote. It's in the cup. Poll question for you today at the website, jerrydoyle.com. Obama and the Dems keep talking smack about tax fairness. Okay. Is it fair that the bottom 20% of earners who average $23,500 a year pay 1% or $235 a year in federal taxes, while the top 1% who make $1.2 million a year pay 28.9% or $346,800 a year in federal taxes? Your choices are, yes, it's fair. The top 1% earns more. Top earners should pay more. Seems fair at the current levels. Not even close to being fair, or pay more, get more, pay more, get less. 5% think it's fair because the top 1% earns more than the others. 4% think the top earners should pay even more. 4% say it seems fair at the current levels. 33% say, hey, you pay more, you get more. You pay less, you get less. And 55% say it's not even close to being fair. We'll take your answer there or here at 800-876-4123. I'm looking at this whole notion of fairness. Let's start with this premise. Is life fair for anyone? Is it? Is there anybody that you can think of where you just go, wow, everything just lined up for that person? Everything happened exactly the way I would want it to happen for me. But guess what? It's not you. It's them. You're not going to be them, and they're not going to be you. And as far as I know it, life's never been fair. Life's been life. And I think the fact that you have life and you have the ability to judge whether your life is fair or not is a pretty good deal to begin with. But this whole notion of fairness that the Democrats seem to own, and the Republicans don't seem to be able to counter and push back on. Look at it just from the numbers standpoint. The bottom 20% of all earners in this country pay $235 a year on average in federal taxes. Vast majority of people in the bottom 20% pay zero, but yet they get a whole hell of a lot. Now, the people on the top 1%, who average $1.2 million a year, they pay almost 30%, which is pretty damn close to the Buffett rule that Obama wants to include on income earners above $1 million a year, where you have to pay a minimum 30%. That's $346,800 a year. If we're talking about fairness, what's fair about that? And to the 5% and the 4% and the 4% who seem to think it's fair because top earners earn more, top earners should pay more, or everything seems fair at the current levels, I'd love to hear from you and where your logic originates from. Where does that come from? How did we get here to this notion that life is supposed to be fair and taxes are supposed to be fair and everything's supposed to be even Steven? Where does that come from? How did you get that bored into your brain that it's supposed to be fair? Now, if you go by the definition of fairness, which comes from the word fair, it means free from bias, free from dishonesty, free from injustice. Isn't it an injustice that the top 1% are paying 30 times the rate of federal income taxes that the bottom 1% are? And who uses the most services? Who pays less and gets more? The people who earn less get more. Well, that seems fair, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. Not to me. I'm a big believer in the Bailey Savings and Loan, in It's a Wonderful Life, in Jimmy Stewart's character. as opposed to what you probably perceive, some of you, as me taking on the role of Mr. Potter, the evil, greedy banker. But what's fair about that? Someone who earns more pays 30 times more than the people who don't earn as much, but yet get way more. Now, how does Mitt Romney and the GOP combat this? They can talk about, the economy and jobs, and when I become the president, I'm going to flip a switch and jobs are going to be flowing like chocolate in Willy Wonka's factory. It's not going to happen. You know that. I know that. They know that. But somehow they don't want to tell you that because that's not good for their political futures and their fortunes. We know that that's a misstatement, an overshoot, an exaggeration. Sure, capitalism is going to help the economy more than socialism, but it's not going to be what the Republicans are promising it to be should Romney become the president. But how does Mitt Romney, how does the GOP start to address the issue of fairness from the standpoint of what seems to be fair to the Democrats is unfair to people on the other side of the argument? Why should I or you or others have to pay 30 times what someone else pays and get less from the system? Oh, Jerry, the benefits from the system are obviously reflected in your paycheck, in your annual earnings, in your net worth, in your homes, in your vacation home, in your jets, in your cars, and all of it. You should pay more because you have more. Pay less is a shoe store. Pay less and get more is a bad philosophy, but it's one that people are buying. Somehow we've switched things around in people's minds where if you pay less, do less, demand more, you will be rewarded by politicians under the guise of what it is that you're going through is because the system's not fair. How does Romney and the GOP combat this? What do they do? Do they just say, well, sorry, that doesn't get you votes. Life's tough, that doesn't get you votes. Too bad, that doesn't get you votes. Try harder, that doesn't get you votes. There, but for the luck of God or grace of God, that's not going to help your political fortunes. What do they do to combat that? You know, I look at these bankruptcies in places like San Bernardino and Stockton and Mammoth Lakes and Vallejo and Pritchard, Alabama. There's a reason that those things are happening. Sure, there's mismanagement. Sure, there are promises that are being made. But those promises have to be made to someone in order to get something, which is a vote. And in the entitlement mentality that we have today, more and more people are becoming addicted to government crack. The government is a drug dealer, an entitlement drug dealer. The entitlement mentality is growing. The government is feeding the need to feed that entitlement mentality that people have, and it's all done under the guise of fairness. And this president is hoping to get reelected and has a good shot at doing so by convincing people that it's just not fair. When does the other side push back? You want to talk about fairness? I make 1.2 and I got to pay $350,000 a year in taxes, federal taxes, for what? The people who have money? Are they the ones that you see on Cops? Are they the ones that you see on the lockup Raw shows? Are they the ones that constantly have the police coming to their house? Are they the ones that are constantly draining the system? Are they the ones that are on the check of the month club? No, they're not. It's the people who don't pay, who do get and demand more, and their needs are being met by the drug dealers in the government that are keeping more and more people addicted to this government crack. And is that really fair to the people who the government then has more and more dependent upon them for their future to be? No, it's not. You would think, how does a drug dealer do what a drug dealer does? Don't they understand they're destroying people's lives? They don't care. It's the same as the government. The government is a drug dealer. And if some junkie dies, as long as there's enough product in the pipeline, don't worry, I'll get another junkie to replace that junkie. And that's the same thing with generational dependency on government crack. One generation dies off, you're out of business. Not if you have generational poverty, systemic poverty, generational bankruptcy, and the mindset that that's just the way it is because life isn't fair. You've got job security as a government drug dealer if you can convince generation after generation that the system's not fair. But if instead of pointing out people who are in the top 20% as maybe a model that you'd like to follow, maybe to go into some kind of 12-step program where you can turn your back on government crack, maybe there's a way that you can say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. Maybe you go into some kind of rehabilitation program or you just decide that you're going to go cold turkey, but that's painful. People don't want to accept that responsibility. They would rather wallow in mediocrity, blame others, say the system's not fair, and then turn that victim mentality over to the next generation. And who's the biggest purveyor of government crack? It's the socialist Obama, the socialist Democrats, and the do-gooders on the left side of the aisle that say everyone out there is a victim.
The Jerry Doyle Show.
Government crack dealers. You look at the numbers of people and how we've become a nation of takers, and the number of people that are taking from the system and not paying into the system. But what's Mitt Romney or the GOP to do? Because this is tough talk. This is like an intervention. And America needs an intervention. We need to sit people down and say, enough. Knock it off. No mas. Not today. This ends here and now. But that conversation isn't going to happen. And it's not going to happen this November or 2 Novembers from now or 4 Novembers from now. Because the government drug dealers look at you as just another junkie that they can sell their garbage to. Stick with me.
This is the Jerry Doyle Show.